Okay. So now, as I said, the first 3 chapters, I got it. I mean, it was like research. But now it gets pretty cool. Okay. We're going to talk about some real deep stuff here. Consciousness. What does it mean to be conscious? What is sleeping? Why do we sleep? I mean, what a waste of time. Can you imagine how many awesome things we could have? Oh my God. You know, when, what's his name? Edison, Thomas Edison, right? He creates the light bulb, okay? And you know what? He was so proud because he goes to Europe where they don't have electricity and light bulbs, and he's just writing in his diary about how stupid they are, and they as soon as the sun goes down, they can't be productive anymore. They're stupid idiots, so they just sleep all the time. And so he felt that he had really unleashed the American spirit because now we don't have to sleep when it's dark. We can actually do useful stuff. Edison, I think you're full of yourself. So we're going to talk about sleep and then different stages because sleep is not all sleep is the same. Right? There's lots of different types. But then we're going to start to talk about drugs a little bit because drugs, when taken, they create an altered state of consciousness. And after drugs, we'll move into some other stuff. We're going to talk about, what happens when somebody prays and is speaking in tongues. You ever heard of speaking in tongues? Yeah, it creates a state of consciousness, or more specifically, a brain scan. I mean, when you scan the brain of somebody that's speaking in tongues, it's just different from any other state of existence. It's just a different way of existing. Right? Cool. So consciousness. There's a lot of things associated with consciousness. Here's one. Let's see this one. Consciousness. God, it's a hard term. In psychology, in a lot of fields, it's difficult sometimes because we want to study consciousness here in this example. And even in a hard science like physics, I want to study gravity. Okay, can I have 3 cups of consciousness, please? No. How about gravity, right? Gravity, 3 grams of gravity. No. Does consciousness and gravity, do you measure them with liters? No. They don't exist. Okay? Neither gravity nor consciousness exists. And yet we talk about them and we study them. It does not exist. You can see this might be a bit of a problem. This is a problem for researchers. How do you study something that does not, in fact, exist? And so it becomes hard to define consciousness. I guess we'll talk about our awareness of ourselves and our environment. Okay? So animals are conscious, right? Animals are conscious. So what's the difference between a human and an animal?
Well, what do they call that? Like sentience?
Sentience? Yeah, if you were in philosophy class, perhaps.
Yeah.
Or a bad science fiction novel. Yeah, maybe. Some people argue that the main difference between human consciousness and other animal consciousness is that human beings can consider their own deaths. Okay? That other animals, perhaps they might have a fear of death, but that's just evolution programmed into them. Right? We, however, we can understand death. We can talk about and think about death in ways that other animals can't. I don't know. It's a hard question. Consciousness might be related to awake versus unconscious or something like that. But, you know that even when you're unconscious, your brain is still responding. Even people that are in a coma, okay? You know, you brain scan somebody in a coma, and you know what happens is their brain is responding to the sounds around them, and they are even processing the words is because it's saying that person's name. See what happens. Their brain will absolutely spike with recognition at their own name, even though they are unconscious in a coma. So it's kind of a weird thing to be awake versus unconscious, because we're still there, okay? Some people might talk about consciousness as terms of like being able to make a conscious decision, free will. I can choose to make something. I don't know, it's really hard to describe, so I'll do the best I can with it, okay? So clearly you cannot study it directly, but you can study the product, or what we think is a product of consciousness. So EEG, electroencephalograms, they are devices to measure the electrical activity of the brain. Okay? You can put on a helmet and record the electricity. And it was actually pretty interesting when they first created EEGs. They were able to find very quickly that sleep does not, sleep is not, see, you know, the way we experience sleep as people is we drift off to sleep. Okay? But EEG was able to reveal, no. At one moment in time you are awake, at the next moment you are asleep. There is no drifting off to sleep, all right? There is just like you're here and then you're not here, okay? So that's cool, but you can also measure things such as galvanic skin response or changes in the temperature, an electrocardiogram, EKG for heart rates, the PET scan, that's a positronic emission tomography, which will show active areas. So when we talk about consciousness, we often talk about what we call the dual track mind. I like this idea that the conscious high track is that part of our awareness that we are, well, aware of. We take a deliberate action. Here, the conscious high track would be like, I saw a bird. Okay, that's what you're sort of like aware of. But what you're not aware of, that kind of is going unconsciously, is you're also thinking about and processing, how is the bird moving? What is the shape of this bird? Where is this bird located in space? So at one level, we're doing this. At another level, we're doing this. Or, as an interesting, like say, you walk through a room. Okay, you just walk through a room, and afterwards you're going to say, where was the location of the table in that room? You know, like, and you can figure it out, even though at the moment you were going through the room, you were not consciously aware of that table. And yet you're able to recreate the layout of the room because you were processing and thinking about the room, just at a different level. Huh? So it's really a neat idea, this dual processing thing. As we said, one of the things about consciousness that's interesting is this notion that allows for selective attention, okay? The thing that we can focus on. And this is hugely important because, as I say, everything that you know, every fact, every piece of information has to come in through a sense organ. If you could not control what comes in through your sense organs, you would get randomness coming in, okay? You would get all kinds of useless information coming in. You would be overwhelmed by what was coming in. We can focus our attention. And so in a fascinating study, they call this the cocktail party phenomenon. But I don't think that here in 2022 anybody goes to a cocktail party anymore, but you got to imagine it's a bunch of people hanging around talking to each other in groups, drinking liquor, okay? And so you're having a conversation here, and you're going on, and afterwards they say, what was the guy behind you talking about? I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. Are you kidding me? Now repeat the same scenario, and the guy behind you says your name. Boom! You just instantly turn around. What was that? What were you talking about back there? And so even though you claim, I wasn't paying attention. Yes, you were. You must have been. You heard your name, right? You must have done so. And so we have this ability to selectively focus our attention. Now, it's not all, I mean, we're still holding someone out there for that, but pretty powerful. inattention. And so what happens is, often when we focus our attention so strongly, we miss everything that's out there. Okay, so some fascinating inattention. I love, this is an amazingly cool study. They got a video. Okay, and in this video, there's 3 players in black and 3 players in white, and they're passing basketballs. The teams are passing them back and forth, and it's really complicated because they're all intermingling with each other. And they tell people, okay, your job is to count the number of times the team in white is passed the ball, or something like that. And people just, they're counting, and in the middle of this video, a gorilla walks out. A dude in a gorilla suit walks out and walks off, all right? And afterwards, the people are like, okay, there was 14 passes. Did you see the gorilla? What gorilla? I was too busy counting the passes. So something as crazy as a gorilla walking across the screen. But they even replicated this study. What is it here? Oh, there it is. It's hard to see because of the darkness here. They replicated it with oncologists. You know, an oncologist is a cancer doctor. Their job is to look at cells and say, is this cancer or not? They took a cell and they put a gorilla into the cell. There's a gorilla up there. And these oncologists never saw the gorilla because they were so focused on determining whether or not it was a cancerous cell, they missed the gorilla. All right? I love that. I don't know what they did. Here's another one. I would love to see this study done. Okay? So here's this guy, and he's like asking for directions. This got to be an English professor, right? Doesn't that look like an English prof? Got to be, okay? So an English professor is like, oh, and look at this, these workers, right? Oh my God, how rude. They got like a door or something. They just barge right through the middle. But you see what's going to happen here is when they barge through with the door, they switch guys, okay? Now the door is gone, he's now talking to a new person. Never notices the change. It is a different person than you were talking to 1 second ago. Nothing. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I like it. Part of consciousness has to do with our daily rhythms. So all day long, all kinds of things are happening over every 24-hour cycle. Okay? What we find is the body temperature rises and falls at different points in the day. Arousal and energy, mental sharpness and alertness. So we have a whole bunch of these different circadian rhythms. So the body's 24-hour cycle, so by the way, circa means about and dia means day, so about a day, right? About a 1-day cycle. And what we find is that these cycles can change with age. I have 2 children that are both absolutely owls. They will not go to bed until 3 a.m. Given the opportunity, they will sleep until noon or later. I cannot tell you how annoying that is when I'm up at 4 a.m. in bed by 7, you know. It's like, I think it's time to get up now, buddy. Let's get the day started. So, circadian rhythms about a day. But you know what's actually pretty interesting? They took some people and they put them into a room with no windows, no access to the outside light, and what they did was no access to clocks or any ability to tell time, okay? And just live there for 30 days. And you know what happened? And they've done this multiple times. Every single time, human beings fell into a 25-hour cycle, okay? So from waking up in the morning or waking up to going to bed became 25 hours every time. It was like not 24, always 25. All right. However, we have the sunlight to help us keep us on track. Okay? And so we can find, it's really pretty powerful, these circadian rhythms. When my kids were little, we used to like to take trips like down to far southern Texas or something, you know, down to Corpus Christi or something. So our plan was always get up at 3 a.m. and just get that drive out of the way so that you get there at 10 a.m. you can still enjoy your day. Okay? You still got a day of vacation, right? Why would I lose an entire day of vacation to driving? So, oh my God, you're driving at 3 a.m. whoo, your body is screaming at you. You are not supposed to be awake right now. This is not what you're supposed to be. 4 a.m., 5 a.m., you're thinking, I am just going to die. And then the sunlight comes up over the horizon, and you're like, just refreshed. I mean, it's like you're wide awake now. Because the sunlight has literally triggered changes in your brain that resets it. It says, now is in fact the time that you're supposed to be awake. So, I find that this is, again, another reason why Thomas Edison is an idiot, right? You can't magically change the brain. I mean, it is what it is. That's what the brain does. And it just pisses me off that politicians play around with the daylight savings time. Like somehow, some politician making their stupid decisions can somehow overwrite millions of years of human evolution. All right? Your brain is designed to work with the sunlight. You cannot just change it and think it will not affect you. There are some serious, serious problems that occur with daylight savings time. So, I don't get it. All right, so it can be hard to shift with like jet lag. Anybody that's ever made some major airline trips will know I have made myself quite a few of those around the world trips, and those are, you got 12-hour shift to do. The rule of thumb is that you should give yourself 1 day for each hour that you shift. But it turns out that when we do these types of shifting, that it's easier if you fly one direction versus the other. All right, and I can't remember the logic of it, but one way is easy to do, and the other is not. So, anyway, the suprachiasmatic nucleus is a mechanism in the brain, but we find that people with that work at night shift, they have serious physical health problems, serious, because your brain is never set. Even if you're in a habit, number one. People that work night shift have to get absolute and utter blackout curtains. You need to black out every bit of sunshine. Any sunshine sneaks into the room, and you will not be able to fall asleep because your brain is telling you, no, this is daytime. You're not supposed to be sleeping in the daytime. You're supposed to be sleeping at nighttime. So, we've got sleep. Right? I like sleep. We don't get enough sleep. So, sleep is interesting. It's, are we fully unconscious? No. Have you ever seen a new mother with a baby? And new babies are hard, okay? New babies are really hard, all right? They will. Oh. And so, a new mother, when the baby is finally sleeping, oh my God, I mean, your sweet, petite little wife. And once the baby's finally asleep, it's like gone. Just, you know what I'm talking about, a full-on done. You know, it's crazy. That mother, you could almost take a fire engine and run it next to her head, and she'll still sleep. All right? Because, I mean, I got it. But the baby makes a sniffle 3 rooms away, and mama shoots out of bed. Okay? What the hell? I'm going to run a fire engine next to her head and she still snores? But a sniffle from a baby 3 rooms away. Yeah. Okay? So clearly, I mean, we are not dead to the world. Okay? We are 100% monitoring our environment when we are sleeping. There is no doubt about it. Okay? So all night long, we're moving in our bed. Okay, we're shifting here, shifting there, but hopefully it's pretty rare that we fall out of bed. So we must be processing, where am I? What is the edge of the bed? Where can I go to? Sometimes we incorporate real-world noises into our dreams, especially if it's right towards the end there when you're just waking up and there's a dream and you hear a sound and there it is. Okay, someone will make it more. Absolutely monitor. We can monitor the EEG, the electroencephalogram waves, muscle movements, things of this nature. people have done different things. Say, for example, there was this belief for a while that you could play a lecture or material you wanted to learn, play it while you're sleeping, and your brain would process it while you're sleeping. And there's some evidence of that, but it's not. Wouldn't that be awesome? You could just take advantage of that to learn everything you need to know. Yeah. So this sleep thing is a pretty big waste, but look at this. It protects us. You do know that we are daytime creatures. Okay. Once it gets dark, we don't see very well. We can't smell people, smell animals that are trying to hunt us. We're pretty helpless after dark. Okay, especially if you're talking about a caveman. All right, caveman is useless after dark. So you know what, dude? You ought to not be roaming in the woods at dark. So sleep protects us. It makes sure that we're not roaming around in the dark woods when we should not be roaming around in the dark woods. Okay? But it turns out that sleep will restore and repair the brain, that the brain's plasticity, the changes in the brain, much of them are occurring while we sleep. Okay? Sleep builds and strengthens memories, absolutely. So remember, memories that first come into the hippocampus eventually have to go to the cerebral cortex, and it appears as though it is during sleep that the transition is occurring from hippocampus to cortex. Okay. Sleep facilitates creative problem solving. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the tricks around there. If you're trying to solve a very complicated problem, you think about it before you're actually going to sleep, and then your brain will continue to process the problem while sleeping, and you may well end up with the answer when you wake up. So, okay. And sleep is also the time when growth hormones are active. So this is when the pituitary glands, the endocrine system, this is when it's spitting out the hormones. And so I can tell you, as a teenage boy that was going through puberty, it was like I was sleeping 14 hours a day, right? I mean, that was the time when I needed the most sleep. So what do we find? When it comes to how much sleep animals get per day, look at this. A giraffe gets 2 hours of sleep a day, all right? A giraffe is a very helpless animal. It stands in the middle of a savanna. And it's really tall. It is a giant sign, "Lion, I'm over here, come fight me." This dude does not have the ability to waste very much time on something like sleep, because it is incredibly dangerous. Okay? Again, cows are relatively helpless as well, because they're just standing there. It's just like, look at me, I'm an idiot. Okay? Humans is about 8 hours, but we find some animals that don't tend to have a lot of predators, all right? Or like a sloth, because a sloth hangs in a tree in a way that makes them safe from predators. They spend the most time, okay? Safe while sleeping, not safe while sleeping, okay? So that's pretty cool. So we can say, what does sleep do for us? Therefore, if we do not have sleep, a loss of sleep will make you stupid. Okay? Sleep deprivation is if you're trying to drive a car without adequate sleep, it's in some cases worse than being drunk. Right? It affects you that much. Some of the most major catastrophes, some of the worst airline crashes and ship disasters are a direct result of lack of sleep. All right? It's just very straightforward. But you also will gain a lot of weight. You'll get sick. You'll feel old. You'll get blood pressure problems, hormone malfunctionings. Your metabolism will get all out of whack. Your body will not. We'll have to get to some of this stuff later, but all kinds of stuff here. You can't concentrate. Your creativity's off. So sleep is not something that you ought to skimp on. Okay. And in fact, the brain. I mean, the idea is that, the human beings need 8 hours of sleep. Well, it's just a number. It's a nice average rounded number. But what happens is your brain kind of keeps track of what you've been doing. And so if you were to, let's say, we get 4 hours of sleep for a couple of nights, okay? So 3 nights in a row we get 4 hours of sleep. Your brain says, you owe me 12 hours now. Because you went 3 nights in a row and you only got 4 and you should have had 8, you owe me 12. You finally get some sleep, you get 10 hours sleep, and you're exhausted. Because you still owe another 10 hours to your brain. Got it? You still owe. And so it appears to be a 2-week time period that the brain is keeping track of what you owe it. All right? And so what the pattern tends to be, especially, I'm just saying, I've had children that just made it through high school and college and stuff, and it tends to be 4 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours during the week, 18 hours on weekdays. Let's get it together. And then it becomes very problematic because what happens is when the kids get up at 2 o'clock or some shit on Sunday, and they're supposed to be going to bed at 10 o'clock on Sunday, it doesn't work. They just got up. And I'm like, oh, children. All right. Look at that. They paid participants to stay in bed. When they first started in there, they spent 12 hours a day sleeping. Okay? But once they caught up with all the debt that they owed, they settled into around 8 hours. Right, so that seems to be a fairly decent number. And we can see here that children, the youngest children need close to 18 hours a day. As we get older, in particular, if you get down to the actual old people, it's more like 6. Okay? And remember what I say is that information processing is occurring. This is where memories are consolidated. And for an infant, you know when an infant is born, every single thing is new. Every single thing must be learned from scratch. And so they need 18 hours of sleep to process all that new memories. Everything is new. Okay? All right, so I'm going to stop her there. And then Thursday, okay, so let's see what we got now. That means tomorrow night you must have a discussion post due for topic 4, or chapter 4, right? Sunday night you must. Monday night is going to be the quiz for chapter 4, correct? However, Tuesday morning is going to be the exam. Alright, next Tuesday is the first exam. You're all looking at me like, holy shit. We'll talk about it on Thursday. So I don't recommend putting the chapter 4 quiz off until Monday midnight because you're probably busy with something else, like studying for the exam. So, hey, you do what you do, all right? But that is what we have at this point. So on Thursday, we'll talk about what you're going to need to do for the exam, what you can expect from it, things of this nature. Okay? So, I'm glad to have you here, and I'm hoping as we move forward that I can get you involved. It's general psych, which is harder, but now that we're in person, we know each other a little bit better. Yeah, there were some people that came in at the last minute there. I need to figure out who you are. So